Walama, or Ballast Point Park, is a public park situated on Wongal country on the northeastern point of the Birchgrove Peninsula. Materiality and material transformations define the post-industrial site, and are a means through which varying scales of temporality and change can be understood and are positioned to be integral to the contemporary function of the site.
Prior to colonial invasion, the headland was dominated by a canopy of Angophora costata and Ficus rubiginosa, which served as habitat for native fauna such as barangarang, kangaroo, and species of gunyadu, large bird. The land belongs to the Wongal people who inhabited the area and may have used the peninsula for hunting. Whilst a restoration of the pre-invasion equilibrium is a far cry from the present state, the site does attempt to acknowledge its bushland heritage with plantings of native species such as Eucalyptus botroides and Alocasuarina littoralis. "15 years since the completion of the project, the tree growth has swallowed some of the design viewpoints and infrastructure. Intentional or not, the grown environment is reclaiming the built, creating unique locations for impressive komorebi, the process and feeling of visible sunlight passing through trees. The acknowledgement of the indigenous heritage is less successful. Walama, meaning to come back or to return, may be the joint name of the park, but it is certainly not equal when it comes to presence within the site. There is all but one mention in the park signage of its dual naming. Similarly, there is very little recognition of the colonial invasion and the fact that this site is on stolen land. The only acknowledgement can be seen in the timeline installation in an area of the park with low foot traffic.
Post-invasion, the headland was largely deforested and used as an extraction site of ballast for empty ships returning to Europe. It was held over the years by several local landowners, including Thomas Perkins, who built the Menevia House in 1864. Part of the remaining footing of Menevia cuts through an otherwise accessible path, disturbing human movements and signalling to the user that the design prioritizes preservation of the existing structures over human accessibility and convenience. A display case, home to found artifacts positioned adjacent to the footings, is empty and neglected, waiting to be repaired and refilled.
In 1928, the site was purchased by the Texas company, now Cowtex, to be used as a seaboard terminal. Over the next 7 decades, use by Cowtex changed several times, until operations were completely phased out. This period of industrial history is by far the most evident. The layout of the park is a clear negotiation with the arrangement of the Cowtex site. All the largest tank locations can be identified by their physical footprint being maintained. The sandstone cuttings, grass circles, concrete platforms, and Tank 101 remind the user of the site's past whilst providing unique spaces for recreation. There are pathways throughout the park at different scales, traversing multiple levels, allowing people to move through the space at their own discretion. There is no set route, although the park has been constructed in a way that there are designated spaces for people and for the more than human. Many parts of the park challenge traditional pathways, with intentional dead ends, exposed rocks in the middle of walkways, stairs made from mismatched materials at uneven heights, and embedded planks in the earth in place of cement. The geometric oddities create nooks and secluded places for rest, meeting, and connection, providing an engaging and interactive experience for the visitor, albeit highly inaccessible for prams or non-able-bodied people.
Heesh posits that young industrial landscapes have the potential to meet major urbanisation aims such as densification and mixed-use development. Yet the redevelopment of young industrial landscapes often happens from a hypothetical virgin land position, disregarding the existing features of these sites. Whilst the Ballast Point project successfully acknowledges the existing features of the site, it fails to acknowledge the existing needs of the broader urbanising city, that of a demand for affordable housing. A young industrial landscape referenced by Heesch is Landschaftspark Duisburg Nord in the Dusseldorf region of Germany. It is a comparable site that decontaminated rather than deconstructed its heritage, whilst acknowledging the site's condition and the needs of the broader community. The conversion of old structures into new spaces is present across these two parks in a pair of triptychs, tanks at Walama and silos at Landschaftspark. However, the German project succeeds where Ballast Point Park fails, delivering a space which meets the needs of the broader community, specifically a greater level of multifunctionality, which is one of the guiding strategies of successful young industrial landscapes.
The design of Walama actively subverts the heavy polluting industrial past through recycled materiality, which is sustainable and acknowledges and celebrates the history of Ballast Point. The Gabion walls, a project-defining visual and structural element, are made from the remnants of structures on site, a choice which diverted 22,000 tonnes of waste from landfills. The Gabion walls pay homage to the colonial name given to the site, ballast, meaning the heavy material, usually mixtures of gravel, sand, or iron, placed in the bottom of a ship for stability. The resource which was initially extracted from the site now supports its structure in a modern reinterpretation. Throughout the walls, there are hundreds of hidden objects found on site during construction. Children and adults alike delight in spotting a teapot, an old sign, a colourful tile, or a worker's boot. The concrete paths and walls are mixed with 582 tonnes of coal power plant waste, saving it from landfill and minimising the use of new materials. The introduction of timber softens the overtly industrial existing and new materiality on site in pathways, seating, and amenities. 30,602 linear feet of virgin timber was saved through the use of recycled Jarrah hardwood. Although recycled, it is important to acknowledge the timber would have likely come from the Jarrah forests on Noongar country in Western Australia. Eucalyptus marginata, or jarrah in Noongar language, are tall hardwoods which are home to black cockatoos and are the centre of a crucial ecosystem. Many trees in the forests predate colonisation. Certain attempts at sustainability have performed unsuccessfully since 2009, such as the wind turbines in Tank 101. Once intended as a working energy source, now a reminder that all design ideas may not function as intended on site. In addition, the native grasses on the lawn areas, which were not initially expected to require watering, now have an installed irrigation system due to high usage. For many elements of the park, the material cycle of the designed landscape began and ended within the site. As suggested by Hutton in Material Landscapes, the conceptualization of a site's material production as integral rather than external to the design can positively shift the theoretical concerns of a project without necessarily shifting the site's boundary. In Walama, the sustainable successes of the site can be mostly attributed to the considered material choices.
A short ferry ride away is Walama, Cockatoo Island, a site with an important connection to Walama through their shared industrial history and harbour location. Interestingly, both sites are defined by industrial structures which exist contemporarily as unique spaces for contemporary art, and in themselves have become site-specific artworks. Walama marked the beginning of a still-growing trend of opening the industrial harbour of Eora to the public and prioritising public space. Since its reopening to the public in 2007, Walama has existed as an event space, hosting the Biennale and other cultural events, a site to which visitors travel with an intended purpose. Notably, although mostly a park which serves the local community, Walama holds space for both art and frequent recreational use, blending the experiences to provide a multifaceted site through which someone may walk their dog and happen upon poems by Les Murray, or picnic near to Robin Backen's immersive artwork. There is no traditional play equipment in the park, which encourages children to seek out other play spaces. The exploratory nature of the space makes for a fantastic site for hide and seek, with small nooks and crannies, tunnels and tanks to walk through, and rocks to climb. Backen's site-specific sculpture, Delicate Balance, is a concrete structure which juts out over the water's edge, inviting passers-by to walk inside. The work is naval in its appearance and experience, resembling a funnel on a large ship. A grate in the floor allows one to stand above the waves lapping against the heritage harbour wall, and small viewpoints provide a curated view of 4 harbour vistas, one across to Urulbin, Bull's Head, and another to the harbour bridge. Overhead, one is presented with a circular snapshot of the sky, through which one can watch the movements of clouds and birds. Backen's work and many of the intentionally designed viewpoints in the park draw from the picturesque tradition of the creation of a view or a vista within a landscape. In the words of Stewart, manipulating flux into form, infinity into frame. In Walama, picturesque rolling hills are replaced with the glistening harbour, and ruins with decaying harbour infrastructure. Like many other elements of the park, the work challenges typical behaviours and actions within public space, encouraging people to enter and to be met with a bodily and sensory experience entirely different to what they may normally experience on their morning or evening walk.
The redesign of Walama showcases that the complexity and multifaceted history of the site is not a hindrance to its current purpose and function. Rather, it is worked into the fabric of the park in a manner which is respectful and considerate of all histories, making for a surprising and entirely unique experience.